now Labor New South Wales federal senator. Let's go across the aisle and speak with Jason Falinski, the federal Liberal member for Mackellar on our northern beaches. Jason, welcome back to Drive.
Thank you, Jim. Always a pleasure.
How about the day? What's your reaction?
Mate, I don't actually really know. I'm pretty numb from it. How many more times does the Independent Commission Against Corruption in New South Wales have to undermine our democracy until people start taking either its abolition or its major reform sensibly and properly? I mean, this is a commission that bluntly put had to be saved by Mike Baird because it had violated the law according to the High Court, according to the New South Wales Court of Appeal, according to its own Inspector General. Over and over again, it has exceeded its legislative power to involve itself in politics while ignoring real issues of criminality and corruption in this state.
Yeah, but I think the bottom line here is if she's crossed the line, the Premier, and there's obviously the ICAC believe they've got evidence and compelling evidence along those lines that she's been compromised in her judgment, they have to act.
Sure, Jim, and if that's the case, I'm a monkey's uncle. Because frankly putting it, we've had 3 premiers resign in this state. We had Nick Greiner resign because he offered someone a job. We had Barry O'Farrell resign because he forgot he'd received a bottle of wine on the night that he was elected in a historic victory over the senator that you were just interviewing. And now we have Gladys Berejiklian resigning because of someone she dated. While at the same time, they couldn't actually, while they were in government, bring themselves to investigate a single matter of corruption under the Carr and Keneally government and waited until they were out of office to do so. And when they did, and I'm quoting David Icke, the former commissioner, when he said, every time we looked at something, there were all these other issues that arose, so we had to stop investigating it. That's what we have from the New South Wales ICAC. Now, this isn't just me saying this. This is the High Court who said it. The Supreme Court of New South Wales, the New South Wales Court of Appeal, the Inspector General, Mike Baird, the former Premier, had to pass a piece of retrospective legislation in order to validate what they'd been doing because they had been acting outside of the law. Last year they went to a New South Wales upper house committee hearing and made less than subtle threats to the Parliament that unless they had their budget increased, that they would make their lives hard. Now, none of this gets reported by the media because there is this symbiotic relationship where they provide great stories like today, but in doing so, they undermine the very fabric of what justice and democracy is in the state of New South Wales.
What's been the reaction of your colleagues as far as the government's concerned and the coalition? We've heard from the Prime Minister on the program a short time ago. What else of your colleagues, and are they, like you, a bit numb and also shell-shocked?
Well, they're horrified. They're horrified that you have a Premier who has led us, who has done the best job of anyone in terms of, like, if the job of any leader of any state in this country was to get us through the pandemic to the other side where we don't have to have lockdowns. New South Wales has exceeded all expectations both during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. And for that, we have now a Premier who has done, anyone who knows Gladys Berejiklian would know that this is a person who just crosses the T's and dots the I's. It is not in her nature, in any way, shape or form, to undertake any act of criminality or corruption. And yet now we have yet another good Premier resigning for on the basis of aspersions.
Well, certainly there has to be a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and that public inquiry starting on Monday, October 18, will be due to go around about 10 days. Findings might take longer to be released, but there has to be a presumption of innocence until proven guilty, and she'll give her version of events.
Jim, there isn't. She's resigned. Her career's over. She's leaving Parliament. I mean, there is no presumption of innocence here.
So what do you...
Her career is finished because of an allegation. Well, they haven't even got round to making the allegation yet. It is simply the threat of an investigation by ICAC and a public hearing, which frankly has a lot in common with a show trial, bluntly, than it does with actual justice.
But ICAC are saying, the Independent Commission Against Corruption are saying there are questions to be answered, that her judgment could have been compromised. That's hence the reason for the public inquiry.
Mate, that's a reason for an inquiry, not for a public show trial. So, and there are questions to be answered. To your point, is maybe where you want to undertake an inquiry. It's a place to where you get to, which is, there's a presumption of innocence. I mean, she's had to resign her position today. And this is a Premier, let's be clear, that has done a very good job, especially compared to other states and territories around this country and other parts of the world when it comes to this pandemic. There's no evidence of corruption. There's no evidence of criminality. There's lots of, by the way, as I said to you before, Mike Baird had to pass retrospective legislation in order to validate some of the actions that the Independent Commission Against Corruption had taken. And when an upper house inquiry was undertaken to find that out, the Commission actually argued, but get this, the Commission actually argued that they didn't want to release all the documents relating to that change in the law. So so when it comes to their behaviour, they're very happy to keep 16 documents secret from the public.
Okay, so
yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
Sorry.
Finish off. Go on.
No. So I'm just saying, there's no presumption of innocence here. A person has lost her job today on the basis of an unformed allegation, which now will be part of a public inquiry, which, as I say, looks a lot like shaming rather than an actual inquiry.
Who do you think replaces her?
Oh, mate, look, is
Dominic Perrottet the front runner, the New South Wales Treasurer? And could we see...
They're very lucky that they have a number of very good options to pick from. The minute I'd say someone's a front runner, that'll be the kiss of death. So I don't want to do that to anyone. But got a number of very good options. And
who are those options? So obviously Rob Stokes, the planning minister's thrown his hat in the ring. Stuart Ayres, the Minister for Western Sydney, is he an option?
So as I understand it, and I'm sure you're hearing the same thing, there's Rob Stokes, there's Dominic Perrottet, there's Stuart Ayres, Matt Keane, I'm sure, would be considering... Well,
who's the right man to lead the coalition?
Well, mate, it's the right person.
I beg your pardon. Would you just mention those men?
No, but that would honestly be up to members of Parliament in New South Wales, and really that's their decision, and I've got to respect the fact that they've got to make that, and it's a difficult decision for them to make because no doubt that they will be numb out of today's events, that yet again this has happened to a decent person, and whoever I think takes over really needs to look at the role of the Independent Commission of Corruption in New South Wales and how it continues to undermine what I think is what we would consider to be fairness in our society in New South Wales.
Jason, thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Tim. Really appreciate it.
Good on you. That's Jason Falinski, Federal Liberal MP for Mackellar on our northern beaches. It's